The wind cuts through the narrow alleys of Whitechapel like a sharp blade. It whistles between the bricks, slipping under collars, past scarves, and straight into the bones. The sky is still an endless sheet of black, pierced only by the faint glow of gas lamps struggling against the suffocating fog that blankets the streets. London at this hour feels like it holds its breath. My boots tap against the slick cobblestones, each step echoing into the emptiness. The stones are damp from the lingering mist, and patches of frost shimmer faintly where the lantern light catches them. I tug my coat tighter around my chest, though it does little. The cold here feels less like air and more like something solid, something that wraps itself around you, heavy and persistent. There's a smell to these hours, a smell of damp stone, coal smoke drifting from distant chimneys, and something metallic, like old iron mixed with the memory of spilled beer from yesterday's foot traffic. Somewhere to my left, deep within the shadow of an alley, a cat knocks over a tin, sending it clattering against the bricks. The sudden noise vanishes into the fog, swallowed whole by the vast hush of a sleeping city. The streets, still empty, stretch before me, familiar yet different in the quiet. I've walked this route countless times, but something about the silence before dawn always makes the city feel like a stage waiting for its actors to appear. Soon the city will awaken, the clatter of hooves, the cries of vendors, the rush of footsteps. But for now it belongs to me, to the wind, and to the lingering ghosts of yesterday. Slung over my shoulder is a worn canvas sack, limp for now, but destined to swell with the weight of fresh newspapers. My fingers, already aching from the cold, twitch with the memory of the ink, the way it stains, how it smells when fresh, heady and sharp, both bitter and strangely sweet. It's a scent that belongs only to those who touch the city before it wakes. Ahead, the silhouette of the printing house emerges from the fog. It's an old brick building with windows smeared grey by years of soot and grime. Faint glows pulse from within, flickering as the great iron presses stamp news onto paper. The rhythmic thumping reaches my ears, chack, 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 like the heartbeat of the city itself. Each thud means another story born, waiting to be carried by hands like mine. A thin column of steam escapes from a side vent, mingling with the fog. Beneath it, the mingled scents intensify. Ink, hot metal, damp paper, and the ever-present smoke of coal fires burning somewhere unseen. My boots crunch against loose gravel as I cross the yard toward the side entrance. Already others gather. Henry is there, same as every morning. His scarf is wound so high that only his eyes show, tired, red-rimmed, but alive. "Bleedin' cold, ain't it?" he mutters, breath turning to clouds. I nod, offering only a grunt. Words are currency in this job, best saved for shouting headlines later. Inside, the air is warmer, but heavy, thick with the oppressive smell of ink and grease. The presses dominate the room, monstrous things of steel and wood, clanking and hissing like beasts. Rollers smear thick black ink onto plates, while sheets of paper slap down in perfect rhythm. Workers move like shadows between the machines, feeding them, adjusting, pulling stacks free. A man in a leather apron hands me my first bundle. The papers are still warm, soft almost, edges slightly damp. I hold them close for a moment, letting the heat seep into my fingers, pretending it's enough to ward off the morning chill. But it won't last. I glance at the front page. Fire in the East End. 4 dead. Another tragedy to sell. Somewhere below that, a smaller headline whispers of unrest in the colonies. Jamaica, I think. But no one here cares much unless it affects the price of sugar. Then there's the political bits. Debates in Parliament, arguments over taxes, murmurs of war far beyond the shores of Britain. I wonder, not for the first time, how many of these stories truly matter to those who buy them. Do the dock workers care about Parliament squabbles? Do the maids hurrying toward Mayfair care about colonial skirmishes? Or are they simply seeking distraction, a momentary escape wrapped in black ink? Henry grunts beside me as he scans his own stack. "Nothing cheerful today," he grumbles. "Never is," I reply, tucking the bundle into my sack. Stepping back into the street, the cold bites harder now, as if jealous of the brief warmth. The fog has lifted slightly, revealing more of Whitechapel's crooked streets and soot-streaked buildings. I glance east. The sky is lighter there, bruised purple with the hint of dawn. Soon the bells will ring. Soon the city will stir. A single horse-drawn cart clatters past, its driver hunched low, whip dangling. From a distant bakery comes the faint scent of bread, warm and yeasty, fighting valiantly against the heavier smells of coal smoke and damped stone. As I start walking toward my usual corner, a busy intersection near Commercial Street, I pass closed shop fronts, their windows shuttered, their painted signs faded by years of grime and rain. Turner's Tailor, Mrs. Harris, Fine Millinery, G. Cooper and Sons, Coal Merchants. I know these places like I know my own hands. I've watched their doors open and close more times than I can count. A rat darts across the curb, vanishing into a drain. Somewhere a church bell tolls, not the call of time, but a reminder that even in the quiet, the city lives. As I walk, I practice the cadence of the headlines in my head. Tragic fire in East End, all the details. Or perhaps riots overseas, what it means for London. The trick is to make it sound urgent but not desperate, loud but not shrill. People are drawn to certainty in a voice. It sells better than the words themselves. The bundle shifts on my shoulder, heavier now with responsibility than with mere paper. These are more than sheets with ink. They are windows into a world most will never see beyond the headlines. I carry them like stories waiting to unfold. Somewhere deep inside me, a thought stirs, quiet, persistent. Will anyone remember the boy who sold them these stories? Or will I vanish like the papers themselves, crumpled, discarded, forgotten by evening? The wind answers with a sudden gust, swirling a loose scrap of yesterday's news across the stones. And so the day begins. The door to the print shop swings shut behind me with a hollow clunk, muffling the rhythmic pounding of the presses as I step back onto the street. The stack of newspapers weighs heavy in my arms now, radiating the subtle warmth of paper still fresh from the press. But more than the heat, it's the smell that fills my senses, the unmistakable, intoxicating scent of fresh ink. It's a peculiar smell, sharp, almost bitter, but with an underlying sweetness that clings to the skin. It settles in the creases of my fingers, seeps into the fibers of my coat, and will linger in my nose for hours after the day is done. Anyone who's handled freshly printed papers knows this scent. It's the smell of stories yet untold, of the world condensed into columns of black and white. I take a deep breath, letting it settle in my lungs. There's something comforting about it, a kind of ritual that signals the true beginning of my day. As the steam from the presses mingles with the cold morning air, the street seems less hostile, less hollow. The faint warmth of the newspapers acts like a barrier against the creeping cold. A few other newsboys scurry past, their sacks bouncing against their sides, already shouting headlines into the empty streets in voices rough with sleep and cold.
"Tragedy in the East End," one of them bellows. "Read all about it." His voice cracks halfway through, but he keeps going, chasing the few early customers like a terrier after rats. I hoist my own bundle higher, adjusting the strap over my shoulder, and start toward my corner. As my boots strike the stones, the city begins its slow stirring. Somewhere down the street, I hear the creak of a shop shutter being lifted. The metallic groan echoes through the alley, followed by the shuffle of footsteps and the rattle of milk bottles clinking together. The first signs of life are always subtle. A light flickering on behind a window, the silhouette of a man filling a coal scuttle, the heavy clop of horses pulling carts laden with goods bound for the markets. Their hoofbeats echo through the damp streets like distant drums. Passing the bakery, a sudden wave of warmth brushes against me, carried on the wind. The yeasty scent of rising bread mingles beautifully with the rich perfume of ink still fresh on my hands. For a brief moment, the contrast is dizzying. The comfort of bread and the sharpness of the news. The softness of warmth against the bite of the cold. A coal merchant crosses my path, leading a soot-covered horse, its eyes half-lidded, its breath misting into clouds. The man tips his cap slightly, a gesture halfway between politeness and habit. His hands are as black as the coal he hauls. "Cold one," he mutters without really looking. "Always is," I answer. Ahead, the streets widen slightly as I near Commercial Street. Here, the city feels different. The fog lifts just enough to reveal the outlines of the great buildings. Banks, shops, and warehouses looming like dark giants against the bruised sky. Lanterns flicker weakly, their flames fighting the damp air. As I approach the corner where I'll make my stand for the morning, I pause for a moment to look down at the paper's front page again.
The letters shine wetly in the gaslight, still not quite dry. I run a thumb along the edge and feel the sticky resistance of the ink, proof that I was among the first to touch today's stories. Fire claims 4 in East End. Riots in Jamaica continue, empire at risk. Gas leak explosion in Pimlico, 2 injured. And buried near the bottom, almost as an afterthought, Royal Society meets, advances in steam technology. It's a strange thing, carrying the world in your hands. I sometimes wonder if the men in Parliament or the lords behind their grand gates think of us, the boys who stand in the cold, shouting their words into the streets, turning ink into coins. My fingers twitch as I flip through a few inner pages. There's a column about a missing child, 8 years old, last seen near Spitalfields. A knot tightens in my stomach. Stories like this sell papers, no doubt, but they also leave a hollow in the chest, a kind of ache that lingers long after the shouting stops. The scent of ink deepens as the wind shifts, blowing the warm, pungent breath of the printing presses back toward me. Mixed with the coal smoke, the faint tang of horse manure, and the comforting drift of fresh bread, it creates a scent that is, unmistakably, London, harsh and rich, dirty and alive. A woman passes by, her boots clicking sharply against the stones. Her shawl is drawn tight, and in her arms she cradles a wicker basket covered in a faded cloth. She doesn't glance at me, but her pace quickens as she disappears toward the market. I wonder briefly what fills her basket. Eggs? Milk? Perhaps flowers to sell at a stall later in the day. Behind me a bell clangs. A grocer opens his doors, spilling weak yellow light onto the street. The shelves inside are stacked with tins and sacks, gleaming faintly. The grocer eyes me for a moment, then waves me on. He knows I'll be back later to sell him his daily paper, the one he places on the counter by the till, half read but always present, part of the ritual of commerce. I shift my weight and glance down at my hands. Already the ink has begun its work. Dark smudges press into the creases of my fingers, staining the pale skin, working its way into the tiny cuts and scratches from days long past. It's a badge of sorts, a mark of the trade. A sudden gust of wind catches the edge of one paper. I grab it quickly before it slips away, but not before the loose page flutters up, swirling in the air like a startled bird before settling at my feet. The sky is lightening now, a softer gray overtaking the black, streaks with the faintest hints of pink and gold near the horizon. Somewhere deep in the city, church bells begin to chime the quarter hour, their tones echoing over rooftops, carried by the morning breeze. With a steadying breath, I square my shoulders, step to the curb, and prepare to let my voice cut through the quiet. Read all about it! Fire in the East End! Gas explosion in Pimlico! Riots in the colonies! The smell of fresh ink fills my lungs, heavy and sweet, as I send the words into the world. The city stirs now, not fully awake, but restless, as if shaking the last remnants of sleep from its bones. Footsteps echo along the cobbled streets, hurried and purposeful. The silence of dawn is broken by the syncopated rhythm of shoes striking stone, some sharp and quick, others heavy and dragging. London's pulse has begun. From my corner near Commercial Street, I spot them coming, the first wave of workers. Men in wool coats with frayed collars, their caps pulled low against the cold. Their faces are pinched, eyes downcast, breath curling in front of them like thin smoke. Some carry lunch tins, others clutch their jackets tighter as they march towards factories, docks, and warehouses that will devour their hours until the sun sets again. There's an urgency in their walk, a tension in their limbs. The city demands much, and it demands it early. Fire in East End! 4 dead! Read all about it! I call, letting the words roll from me like muscle memory. My voice cracks slightly on the last syllable, but it hardly matters. A man slows his pace, fishing in his pocket for a coin. His gloves are fingerless, skin raw from cold. "How much?" he asks. "Penny," I reply, holding out the paper. The coin clinks into my palm, a small metallic weight, and I slip it into the pouch tied at my waist. He nods once, takes the paper, and is gone, swallowed by the stream of moving bodies.
Around me, the street grows louder. Hooves clatter as a hansom cab rattles past, the driver cracking his whip, wheels splashing through puddles left from yesterday's drizzle. From the corner, I catch the steady rattle of a milk cart, glass bottles chiming softly with each bump. A pair of chimney sweeps, no more than boys themselves, dash by, their faces blackened, leaving smudges of soot on the mist. One glances at me with a crooked grin. "No fires round here, eh?" he jokes, tapping the headline with a soot-streaked finger before racing after his companion. Further down, a group of factory girls hurry past in clusters, shawls wrapped tight, boots skimming the cobbles. Their laughter rings out, sudden and sharp, like birds startled from a tree. One catches my eye, offers a fleeting smile, then vanishes around the corner, leaving only the echo of her footsteps behind. The rhythm of the city builds. A porter pushes a cart piled high with sacks of flour. Behind him, a butcher in a blood-streaked apron unlocks his shop, pulling up the wooden shutter with a groan of old hinges. The scent of raw meat mingles uneasily with the ever-present perfume of coal smoke and ink. I shift my weight from one foot to the other, stamping against the cold, and lift another paper from the bundle. My fingers are stiff now, stained black at the tips, the ink merging with the lines of my skin, as if trying to become a part of me. A man in a fine overcoat approaches, a banker, perhaps, or a solicitor. His boots shine, his gloves are stitched leather, soft and worn. He doesn't look at me, merely extends a gloved hand, drops a coin without breaking stride, and accepts the paper like an afterthought. To him, I'm not a boy, I'm not even a voice, I'm part of the street, like the gas lamps, like the fog, like the grime that never quite fades. For a moment, I wonder what life is like behind polished windows, inside warm offices with carpets and tea served by silent hands. Do they read these headlines the way the dock workers do? Do they flinch at the stories of fires, of riots, of hunger? Or do the words merely fill space between meetings and ledgers? A sudden commotion breaks the thought. From the market square comes the raised voice of a street preacher. His words carry on the wind, fierce and breathless. "Repent! The end is nigh! Fire is the Lord's warning!" Some ignore him. Others pause, not out of piety, but curiosity, or perhaps boredom. His voice becomes another layer in the symphony of the morning, overlapping the creak of wheels, the clop of hooves, the chatter of merchants setting up their stalls. A grocer rolls out crates of apples, their red skins slick with condensation. Next to him, a fishmonger lifts heavy slabs of ice onto his table, preparing for the day's catch. The scent of salt and brine cuts through the city's damp musk, sharp and clean. "Read all about it! Explosion in Pimlico! Gas leak leaves 2 injured!" I shout, my voice threading through the chaos. A woman buying bread nods, waves me over, and presses a penny into my palm without asking for change. Her hands are rough, knuckles swollen, hands that know hard work. She folds the paper carefully, tucking it into her basket beside a wrapped loaf and a bundle of eggs. There's something intimate in these exchanges. Brief, fleeting connections. A glance, a coin, a paper, a story passed from one life to another, and then gone. The sun tries to rise now, but it struggles. Its light filters through the thick London fog in pale, ghostly streaks, painting everything in shades of grey and gold.
Shadows stretch longer, but they never quite disappear. London is a city of half-light, always caught between day and night, between smoke and sun. My bundle grows lighter. The pouch at my hip grows heavier with coins, small victories against the day ahead. I glance down the street. More people flood the sidewalks, more stories waiting to be told. For a moment, standing there, wrapped in the mingled scents of ink, coal, bread, and horses, I feel it, the living, breathing weight of the city. It pulses beneath my feet, thrums in the air, fills the space between every footstep, every wheel, every voice. I square my shoulders, lift the next paper, and call into the morning air. Read all about it. Tragedy in East End, empire in crisis, all the news right here. And the rush of footsteps continues. The street widens as I turn toward Spitalfields Market, a space where noise gathers like fog, thick and tangled. The rhythm of the city, already loud, crescendos here. Wheels clatter over uneven stones. The bray of donkeys mingles with the grunts of men hauling crates, and everywhere voices rise, bartering, laughing, cursing. The smell changes too. The ever-present coal smoke lingers at the edges, but here it blends with the tang of fresh vegetables, the damp musk of cabbages stacked high, the sweetness of bruised apples, and the sharp salt sting of fish laid out on beds of melting ice. And beneath it all, faint but constant, the comforting, familiar scent of ink from the papers tucked under my arm. I thread my way between carts and stalls.
A butcher drags a wooden sled loaded with sides of beef, leaving a slick red trail that disappears into the gaps between the stones. A flower seller, her apron dusted with pollen, calls out prices in a voice as sharp as the frost clinging to her blooms. Her hands are cracked, fingers swollen from the cold, yet her face blooms with color. Read all about it. Fire in the East End. 4 dead, dozens homeless, I call, letting the headline roll through the din. An old man, a cooper by the look of his stained hands and sawdust-spattered coat, stops. He squints, wiping his spectacles on a frayed bit of cloth before fishing out a coin. "Another fire, eh?" he mutters, more to himself than me. "Ain't nothing but fires these days." I pass him the paper, feeling the residual dampness of the ink cling to my fingertips. To my left, a baker stacks loaves into a wicker cart, their golden crusts steaming in the chill. He waves me over without even glancing up. "News, lad," he says simply, handing over a coin with one hand while balancing a tray of rolls with the other. I slip a paper onto the corner of the cart, where it rests among the bread, headlines nestled between warm rye and crusty sourdough. A sudden burst of shouting breaks through the general hum, a scuffle over the price of turnips. A customer, face red with cold and indignation, waves his arms wildly at the vendor, who counters with exaggerated shrugs and dramatic appeals to the quality of his wares. "These ain't worth tuppence. Fresh from Covent Garden this very morning, sir. Fresher than you look." Laughter ripples through the bystanders, then melts back into the broader noise. I shift my weight, adjusting the strap of my canvas sack.
The bundle grows lighter with every exchange, but the city's weight never does. It presses in from all sides. The constant movement, the smell of wet stone, the press of bodies wrapped in wool and threadbare coats, all moving, moving, moving.
A bell rings somewhere deeper in the market. From a stall nearby, a fishmonger lifts a massive cod, its silver scales gleaming like coins in the pale light. He slams it onto the counter with a wet thud, sending a spray of water and ice chips into the air. Customers lean in, inspecting, haggling, exchanging coins for the sea's offerings. Nearby, two young boys dart between the legs of shoppers, pickpockets by the look of them. One bumps into me, eyes wide and innocent, but his hand comes up empty. I pat my pouch out of habit, still there. The boy scampers off, disappearing into the forest of coats and baskets. I lift another paper, raising my voice above the growing din. Explosion in Pimlico. Gas leak sends 2 to hospital. Read all about it. A woman with a basket of eggs waves me over. Her sleeves are rolled, her arms freckled and strong. She trades a coin for a paper, tucking it beside her purchases with a practiced motion. There's a rhythm to these exchanges, brief, efficient, transactional, yet strangely intimate. A look, a nod, a coin, a paper. Lives intersect for a heartbeat, then move apart again, absorbed back into the tides of the market. I pause for a moment, breathing it all in. The scent of baking bread mingled with coal smoke. The salt tang of fish, the green, earthy smell of vegetables still damp with morning dew, the sharp sweetness of apples bruised in their crates, and woven through it all the bitter-sweet perfume of ink that clings to my hands and clothes. The fog begins to lift higher now, drawn upward by the heat of the crowds. Sunlight, pale, watery, filters through, turning the edges of rooftops into silhouettes of gold. But the sun here never feels warm. It's more a suggestion of warmth, a polite reminder that somewhere beyond the smoke and soot, the sky still exists. I glance at what remains of my bundle, half a stack, maybe less. My pouch is heavier now, the coins pressing together with that familiar, satisfying weight. Enough, perhaps, for a decent supper tonight. Maybe even a bit of coal to stretch the fire longer. And yet, as always, there's a shadow to it. I think of the fire in East End. The headline isn't just words. Somewhere, only a few streets away, families are sifting through the ashes of their homes. Somewhere, a child is missing from Spitalfields, her face printed small in the corner of page 3. I look down at my hands, stained with ink, marked with the city's stories. They feel heavier than the papers themselves. A shout pulls me back. "Paper boy!" A man in a bowler hat stands by a carriage, his face half hidden by the steam rising from the horse's breath. I jog over, exchanging coin for paper. He doesn't thank me. Few do. And yet, here I am, a thread in this endless, tangled tapestry, selling stories, breathing ink, walking the fine line between being seen and being invisible. The voices of the market swell around me, 1,000 stories unfolding at once, some loud, some whispered, some written in ink, most never written at all. I lift the next paper, square my shoulders, and send my voice into the maelstrom.
Read all about it. Riots overseas. Empire at risk. Tragedy in East End. And the market swallows me whole. The faces. It's always the faces that stay with me. Every morning they pass by, some familiar, others strangers just for today, each carrying their own story, written in wrinkles, in the set of a jaw, in eyes that either meet mine or carefully look away. A thin man in a battered coat walks by, his hands buried deep into his pockets. His shoulders are hunched, as if trying to fold himself smaller, less noticeable. His eyes flick towards my stack of papers, but don't linger. His gait tells me more than any headline, that he's searching. For work, perhaps, for something to fill the empty space in his pockets or belly. An older woman trudges past, balancing a wicker basket on her hip.
Her hair is tucked beneath a frayed bonnet, wisps of silver escaping with every step. Her hands, red, swollen, knuckles cracked from scrubbing other people's floors, adjusts the basket as she pauses in front of me. "Bad news today, lad?" she asks, her voice soft, resigned. I hold out a paper. Fire in East End and trouble overseas. She sighs, produces a penny wrapped in a handkerchief, and slips the paper into her basket without another word. Across the street, a young chimney sweep, no more than 10, leans against a lamp-post, his face a mask of soot with 2 pale crescents where his eyes have blinked clean. He watches the world pass with a gaze that's too old for his body. His fingers twist the hem of his shirt, nervous, restless, waiting for a job, or for something. Near the market entrance, 2 dock workers argue over a newspaper one has just bought from me. Their hands, rough and calloused, grip the edges of the page as if the ink itself holds answers. "Says here the gas explosion took out 2 shops," one grunts, pointing with a thick finger. "Pimlico's a mess then," the other replies. "Reckon my cousin works near there." They fall silent, scanning the text as the morning swirls around them. A man in a tailored coat, polished boots, cane in hand, strides past with a woman draped in velvet, her gloved hand resting on his arm. They glide through the street like they belong to a different city altogether, untouched by the mud, the fog, the hunger that clings to everyone else. He doesn't look at me. She does, for a moment, her eyes lingering just long enough to flick over the headlines, then away, like reading something unpleasant on a wall. I wonder sometimes how they read the same words, or if they ever do. Do they see the fire in East End as tragedy, or as inconvenience? Do the riots in the colonies register as distant storms, or as proof the world outside their carriage wheels still exists? A carriage rumbles by, splashing muddy water up onto the curb. I jump back just in time, though a cold spray still dots my trousers. The driver barely spares a glance, eyes forward, whip in hand, focused only on the grey road unwinding before him. I pull my scarf tighter. The fog is beginning to thin now, rising as the morning's activity stirs it into tatters. The rooftops sharpen against the sky, outlines no longer blurred, the world becoming more real, more tangible with every passing minute. A boy approaches, maybe my age, maybe younger, with a basket slung over his back, filled with cloth scraps. His hands are stained with dye, his sleeves are patched too many times to count. "Paper?" he asks, voice tentative. "Penny," I reply. He hesitates, fingers brush into his pocket, fishing, searching, then he pulls out a single copper coin, worn so thin it barely has a face left. He holds it out like it weighs more than it should. I swap it for a paper, watching as he folds it neatly and tucks it beneath his shirt like a treasure. Behind me, a fruit seller begins her morning song, a rhythmic chant of prices and promises. Sweet oranges, 6 for a penny, fresh today, sweet as summer. Her voice blends into the rising tide of noise, the hiss of steam from a kettle cart, the click of hooves against cobblestones, the creak of market stalls expanding like rib cages to fit more goods, more people, more stories. A constable strolls past, his baton tapping against his boot with every step. His eyes sweep over the street, alert, measuring, judging. He nods at me as he passes, but doesn't stop. I'm part of the scenery, a fixture, harmless. For a moment, I let myself drift. I lean against the lamppost, feeling the rough iron against my back, breathing in the mingled scents of coal smoke, damp wool, roasted chestnuts from a cart further down, and, always, the steady perfume of ink rising from the papers in my arms. The city moves around me, people passing like waves, each one carrying their invisible burdens, their small victories, their private griefs. I wonder, fleetingly, what stories aren't written on these pages, the ones that never make it to print, the argument behind the butcher's stall, the boy whose coin was too thin, the girl whose laughter masked an empty stomach. I glance at the thinning bundle in my sack. The headlines are lighter now. Soon it will be time to move on, down toward Bishopsgate, or maybe the docks, where the next wave of workers will be pouring in. But not yet, not just yet. A man stops, tall, wiry, his face hidden beneath the brim of his hat. His fingers are stained with ink too, a printer perhaps, or maybe just someone who knows the weight of words. Paper, he says simply. I hand one over. His eyes scan the front page, lips moving silently. Then, without looking up, he murmurs, "Funny, innit, how all the world fits on one sheet of paper." He tips his hat and walks away. I watch him go, his silhouette folding into the fog, and for a moment, just a moment, I feel it too. The weight of the world, right here, in ink, in paper, in hands. The bundle feels heavier now, not because the stack has grown, it hasn't, but because of what it holds. The weight of the day, the weight of the city. The headlines inked across each page feel as substantial as bricks in my arms. I glance again at the front page, the bold letters smudging faintly where my thumb has brushed too many times. East End Inferno, 4 dead, dozens homeless. Unrest in the colonies, riots continue. Gas explosion in Pimlico, 2 injured. It's strange, this job. I don't write the stories, but somehow I carry them. Announce them to a city that pretends it's too busy to care, but always listens. I shift the sack over my shoulder, feeling the rough canvas bite into my collarbone. My fingers, stained deeper now with ink, tingle from the cold. The ink works its way into every line, every crease, marks that won't wash out until well after sundown, if at all. A bell chimes somewhere in the distance, St. Bothol's perhaps. The sound floats on the fog, soft but insistent, reminding everyone that time is passing whether they wish it or not. I cross toward Bishopsgate, boots scraping against wet stones.
Here the streets widen, framed by tall buildings whose soot-blackened faces seem to lean inward, watching. The crowds are thicker now, clerks rushing toward offices, apprentices balancing ledgers under their arms, shopkeepers unlocking doors, tipping back awnings, setting their wares to face the growing tide of customers. A man steps from the curb, middle-aged, jacket crisp, hat pulled low. He waves me over without a word, producing a halfpenny as he glances at the headlines. His brows furrow, his lips press tight. Another face folding into a shape I've come to recognize. That quiet frown of someone absorbing bad news they can't do anything about. He doesn't thank me. He doesn't need to. The coin is enough. A coal cart rumbles past, the horse snorting clouds of steam. Black dust billows from the open sacks in the back, coating the street, settling into cracks that will never be clean. The driver coughs into a scarf tied around his mouth, flicks the reins, and disappears around the corner. I call after the passing crowd. Read all about it. Fire in East End. 4 dead. Explosion in Pimlico. Empire at risk. My voice weaves into the fabric of morning, not shouted exactly, but projected, assertive, familiar. A boy, no more than 8, I reckon, tugs at his father's sleeve. The father sighs, pats his son's head, fishes out a coin, and waves me over. "Paper, then," he mutters, "for the lad." The boy grins as he takes it, holding the folded pages like a prize, like treasure. Not to read, not yet. Perhaps just to hold something that feels important, something that smells of ink and the world beyond. Further down, a group of maids gathers at a corner, hands tucked beneath shawls, waiting for the omnibuses that will carry them toward Mayfair's grand houses. One patches my eye, gestures me over. "Bad news again?" she asks, though the answer's already printed on my face. "Always is," I reply, passing her a paper. She presses the coin into my palm, sighs, and shares a glance with the others. For a moment there's a softness there, a shared understanding that the news rarely brings comfort, but it's something to hold against the uncertainty. A sudden clang draws my attention. A streetcar rumbles along its tracks, sparks hissing where metal grinds against metal. Inside, faces stare blankly out. Office clerks in stiff collars, shopkeepers with ledgers balanced on their knees, delivery boys tapping nervous fingers against wooden seats. A woman steps down from the streetcar, skirts lifted just enough to avoid the muck. Her boots are polished, her gloves fine. She catches my eye. "News, please," she says. Her accent is crisp, educated, practiced. I pass her the paper. She flips it open immediately, scanning the headlines. "Terrible business," she murmurs. "That fire." Her voice trails off. Then she folds the paper neatly and tucks it under her arm as she strides away. The breeze shifts, colder now, coming from the river. It carries with it a mix of smells, the tang of salt, the sour reek of rotting fish from the docks, the sharp bite of coal, and always the comforting sting of ink, pressed so deep into the pages it feels like part of the city itself. I pause to shift the bundle again, massaging my shoulder where the strap has worn a tender spot into the skin. My hands ache from gripping the weight of it. Not just the paper, but everything inside. The fires, the riots, the explosions, the deaths. The tiny, hopeful stories buried between the lines. A man in a bowler hat passes, glancing sideways. His pace slows, just enough for me to step forward. "Today's paper, sir?" A nod, a coin, a paper exchanged. His fingers barely brush mine. He folds it swiftly beneath his arm, never breaking stride. I wonder how long it will be before he forgets the headlines, before the story fades, drowned beneath the next day's news, and the next, and the next. I glance again at my hands, the ink, the lines, the city itself pressed into my skin. These headlines, they aren't light. They never are. Another deep breath. Another paper lifted. Read all about it. Tragedy in East End. Gas explosion in Pimlico. Riots in Jamaica. Empire on edge. The words leave my mouth like steam, like smoke, carried into the city's endless hungry air. And the weight in my hands never lessens. By mid-morning, the city is in full motion, a tide of boots and wheels, of gloved hands and tired eyes. Everyone's on their way to somewhere, moving through the fog as if it weren't there, as if routine were armor against the cold. I move with them, adjusting my pace, weaving through gaps in the flow. The streets are different now, fuller, layered with new faces and familiar steps. Outside a bakery, 3 schoolboys cluster beneath the awning, caps crooked, cheeks red from the wind. They argue in half-whispers about which paper is the most important. One swears by the fire in East End. Another insists the colonial riots will mean war. The third, quietest of the bunch, just wants to see the drawings on page 4. I hand over a copy, and they pool their coins, 3 worn pennies, scuffed smooth.
They scatter as quickly as they gathered, already unfolding the news like treasure maps. Across the street, a man in a dark overcoat leans against the entrance to a tobacconist's. His moustache is meticulously trimmed, his shoes spit-shined to mirror finish. He scans the headlines silently, then gestures, no words, just a flick of 2 fingers. I pass him the paper, feel the cool weight of a coin pressed into my palm. Behind him, a young girl, 7, maybe 8, stands barefoot on a crate near her mother's flower stall. Her cheeks are pink, her dress patched and too thin for the weather. She watches everything, the people, the carriages, the shifting colors of the morning. She doesn't blink. Her gaze settles on me as I shout the next line. East End fire, 4 dead, gas explosion in Pimlico. Her lips move like she's repeating the words silently. I wonder if she knows what they mean. The mother turns toward me suddenly, snapping her fingers. Paper. I nod, reach into my sack and pass one over. She tosses a coin, doesn't wait for change, and returns to arranging her wilted daisies with care that borders on reverence. Further down, a row of chimney boys huddle beside a barrel fire. The smoke twists in lazy spirals, their thin bodies pressed together for warmth. One of them holds a paper, reading aloud the parts he can manage. The others listen, some interested, some only pretending. One dozes with his chin tucked to his chest. Near Leadenhall, a gentleman in a top hat steps down from a black carriage. His gait is slow, deliberate, each movement purposeful. He carries a cane, though he doesn't need it, and wears a monocle that catches the morning light like a spark. He glances at me, pauses, and then gestures me over. You have today's. I hand him a paper. He inspects it with gloved fingers, folding it precisely. Same city, different chaos, he murmurs. I smile faintly, unsure if it's a question or a complaint. He disappears into a tea-house, leaving behind only the scent of expensive cologne and polished leather. Then comes the baker's boy, flour dusting his boots, apron tied too tight around his waist. He jogs past, panting, waves a quick hand in my direction. "Later then," he shouts. "Still owe you from yesterday." I nod. He always pays eventually. Outside a textile shop, a young maid adjusts a display of dresses behind the glass. She pauses when she sees me, her eyes flicking toward the headlines. I lift the paper. "Riots continue in Jamaica," I say. "Parliament divided." She hesitates, then shakes her head. "No use knowing, is there?" She smiles, sad and crooked, and returns to pinning lace. I cross into a narrow alley that opens onto a back market, smaller, quieter, but no less alive. Here the carts are simpler, the goods humbler. Bread crusts, coal shavings, second-hand boots. Customers here count their coins twice. An old man with one leg props himself on a crate. His coat is threadbare, his eyes milky with age. He gestures as I pass. "News today?" "Always," I say, handing him a copy. He fumbles for a coin, but I wave it away. He touches the paper like it's glass. "I remember when the Queen married," he says. "Big headlines that day." He doesn't read now, just holds the paper on his knees, staring into memory. Children weave around me, shouting, laughing. One brushes against me, nearly topples my bundle. "Oi!" I bark, half amused. The boy laughs, throws a piece of stale bread at another, and vanishes down the lane. A clock chimes somewhere, 11 maybe. The light is brighter now, though the sky is still heavy with the color of lead. The air smells less of fog, more of people, of wool, sweat, bread, smoke. My hands ache again. I flex my fingers, study the ink beneath my nails, dark and permanent. A day's worth of names, places, grief, and spectacle ground into my skin. I glance down at my stack, maybe a dozen left. The bag hangs lighter now, swinging against my hip as I move. My pouch rattles with coins. Not enough for riches, but enough for soup, enough for coal, maybe even a second-hand pair of gloves. A constable eyes me as I pass. "You all right, boy?" "Always," I lie. He nods, moves on. A carriage creaks by, its door open. Inside, a young woman with gloved hands and pale eyes stares directly at me. For a moment, I forget to breathe. She doesn't blink, doesn't smile, doesn't turn away. Just watches as I call once more into the morning street. "All the day's news! Fire in East End! Empire shaken by unrest! Explosion in Pimlico!" And then she's gone. The people keep coming. The coins keep clinking. The world keeps spinning on headlines and habit. And I, a boy with ink-stained fingers, keep walking. By now, the edge of hunger creeps in. Not sharp, not yet, but a dull tug in the belly, the way your body reminds you that effort has its price. My fingers are stiff again, joints sore. I switch the bundle to the other shoulder and push forward into the quieter part of the city, where the fog hangs low and thick, like a memory that refuses to lift. The scent of the morning has changed. Where the market was all fish and coal, meat and must, here the air holds something gentler, smoke from chimneys where breakfast still simmers, and the faint but distinct perfume of tea. A kettle cart creaks up the road beside me, its iron belly hissing softly. The steam rises in short, thick plumes, carrying the warmth of cheap tea leaves steeped in metal. A woman in a wool shawl ladles a cup for a tired dock worker. He nods in thanks, warming his hands on the tin before bringing it to his lips. The tea isn't good, not really, but it's hot and it's something. She catches my eye. "Want one?" she offers. I pat the coin pouch. Later, still got mouths to feed. She nods, as if she understands exactly what I mean. Not my mouth, but the ones who depend on what I carry home. The fog swirls as I step into a side alley where laundresses hang damp linens over ropes strung between window frames. The steam rising from the washpans fights the cold with every breath. It smells of soap, of wet fabric, of quiet labor. One of them waves a soapy hand. "You again!" "Every morning," I reply. She buys a paper, leaves it to dry on the sill beside her wrung-out sheets. The news will be her only break until the bell signals noon. Further down, a group of men sit outside a pub not yet open. Early risers, or men without reason to rise at all. One smokes a short pipe, its scent peppery and sweet. Another has a flask tucked under his coat, which he doesn't hide as he takes a sip. They nod as I pass. One waves a coin, and I hand over the paper, without needing to ask which headline brought them here. The one with the flask squints at the headline. "Another fire," he mutters. "Always another," the other replies, exhaling smoke through his nose. The street beyond dips slightly, sloping toward the wharves. The cobbles are slick with dew and soot, the gutters thick with yesterday's ash. I step carefully, my boots finding rhythm again as I near the foggiest part of the district. Here the air is thicker. The Thames exhales slowly, cloaking everything in a veil of salt, rot, and damp wood. Ships groan at their moorings, their masts reaching up like skeletal arms. Men shout faintly in the distance, stevedores calling out rope orders or arguing over cargo. But in this fog, even voices sound different, muffled, as if they come from behind glass. A boy runs past, barefoot, hair slick with sweat and fog. He vanishes before I can call out. The tea houses here are open now. Low ceilings, cracked windows, men hunched over wooden tables. I peer into one. Inside, the air is thick with smoke. The chairs creak, the spoons clink, and the silence is heavier than the noise. A woman leans in the doorway, apron dusted with flour. "Paper?" I nod. She tosses a coin, catches the folded page. "Anything good?" I give her a half-smile. "Depends on how you like your sorrow." She doesn't laugh, just nods. That's London for you. No time for cleverness unless it comes with warmth. At the end of the street, a rag-and-bone man rummages through a pile near a coal chute. His cart is mostly empty, just a few broken spoons and a cracked mirror. He sees me, gestures. "No coin," he says quickly, "but I can trade." I hesitate. He holds up a single stub of a candle. "For reading," he adds. I take it. Fair enough. He opens the paper slowly, reads the headline aloud in a voice thick with phlegm. "Unrest in Jamaica. Empire on the brink." He says it like it's poetry, then folds the page and tucks it into his coat. Even among fog and scrap, the world keeps turning. A little girl sits cross-legged by a bakery wall, eating a crust of something dry. She watches me like a statue, eyes bright and still. I step closer and kneel. "Would you like one?" I whisper. She doesn't speak, just nods once. I hand her a paper. Her fingers are tiny, red at the tips.
She doesn't open it right away, just hugs it to her chest. I don't ask for payment. She has already paid, with her stillness, with that look. I stand, tuck the candle stub into my coat, and keep walking. The fog lifts just enough for a shard of light to break through, weak and pale, but enough to catch the ink on the next page I unfold. I stare at it a moment. The bold headline, the delicate lines of type, the way the letters lean slightly, as if bowing to the weight of the truth they carry. A whistle blows somewhere on the docks. A bell chimes again behind me. I press forward. Read all about it. East End tragedy. Riots spread across the empire. Smoke and sorrow, all for a penny. And the fog carries my voice away.
There is a particular sound that stays with you. More than hoofbeats or headlines, more than the clatter of wheels or the groan of wooden signs in the wind. It's the sound of coins falling into a pouch. That light, metallic clink, like a bell with no ceremony. Small, cold, fleeting, yet full of promise. Each coin is a moment, a story exchanged, a word shouted, a glance returned. Some land heavy, others with a whisper, but all echo within the canvas pouch at my hip, like the city itself humming softly in my ear. Outside a cobbler's shop I make another sale. A man with thick fingers and a permanent layer of dust on his coat holds out a tuppence and waves away the second paper I offer. "Keep it," he says. "Paper's worth more than I'll read." I nod, take the coin, fold the spare copy under my arm. Not everyone wants the news. Some just want the transaction, the sound of it, the routine, the feel of still belonging in a city built on movement. I pass under a pub window. Inside, men sip bitter beer from tall glasses, their voices low and uneven. One raises a hand lazily, as if swatting a fly. I lift a paper. He holds up a coin. Exchange complete. Clink. A boy on crutches hobbles toward me, one sleeve pinned where an arm once was. His eyes are sharp, intelligent. He gestures for a paper, holding out a farthing. I hesitate. A farthing won't buy half a crust. But I nod, pass him a copy, and hear that faintest chime as he drops the copper into my hand. Clink. The sound is the same, no matter the coin. Further down, a woman selling ribbons sings to herself between customers. Her voice is airy, barely above the wind. She buys a paper, says she uses it to wrap fragile glassware for her husband's stall. "But I read the headlines first," she adds, almost sheepishly. The coin lands on my palm, cold and wet. I turn it in my fingers before it joins the others. A man shouts from a cart as he passes, a greengrocer in a hurry. I toss the paper up to him, and he catches it mid-motion, drops a coin down like a blessing. It hits the stones before I can catch it, bounces once, twice, then settles against the curb. I scoop it up, brush the dirt off, drop it into the pouch. Clink! The streets begin to quiet, just slightly. The harshest rush has passed. The people who needed to be somewhere are already there. Those who wander now are the in-betweeners, the idle, the tired, the ones just surviving another morning. A young mother struggles to calm her baby, who cries loud enough to startle the pigeons. She doesn't speak, just lifts a desperate glance. I hand her a paper. She trades a halfpenny and a smile.
the kind of smile born from exhaustion, not joy. 2 boys race by, playing at swords with wooden sticks. One has a paper hat, the kind made from yesterday's front page. I laugh quietly. Even when they're old, even when they're yesterday's news, the papers live on. Shields, huts, kindling. London never wastes. Clink. Another coin. A silent customer. A simple nod. I pause near a water pump, letting my arm rest, my legs loosen. The fog is burning off now. The stones beneath me are slick only in patches. The air is drier, warmer by degrees. A priest exits a chapel, head low, brow furrowed. He sees me, hesitates, then approaches. "I'll take one," he says, "for the sick. Sometimes they prefer the news to the scripture." He offers a penny, drops it gently. Clink. I can almost feel the morning measured in those sounds. Every one a heartbeat, a pulse. I think of the first coin this morning, cold in my fingers near Whitechapel, and the hundreds that have followed. Together they sing a song of survival. Near the square, a vendor calls out, selling roasted chestnuts. The scent drifts toward me, warm, nutty, smoky. I glance down at my pouch, heavy enough now. Maybe 2 pennies for a small bag. Not yet. A few papers left. A carriage rolls by, its wheels muffled on the stones.
Inside, a gentleman in a tailored coat stares through the fogged glass, reading a paper. Mine, perhaps. I like to think so. That somewhere, in hands wrapped in leather, my voice still lives on, even if he doesn't remember my face. 2 final papers in my hand. One goes to an old widow feeding birds near the church steps. She presses a coin into my hand like a secret. "They still matter," she says softly, "these words." I nod. They do. The final paper I keep. For myself? Maybe. Or for someone I meet next. The weight in my pouch is satisfying now. The canvas slouches under the weight, copper and silver mingling like thoughts in a crowd. I breathe in deeply. The scent of roasted chestnuts, old ink, smoke, and stone. And then I hear it, the last sail of the morning. Clink. Soft, certain. The sound of the city saying thank you in its own quiet way. The noise softens now, not gone. London never falls silent, but slower, less insistent. The morning rush has passed. The sharp urgency of footsteps is replaced by the slower tread of those who've nowhere left to hurry. I walk without calling out now. My voice is tired, my throat lined with ash and fog. The last paper, still folded under my arm, grows heavier, not from weight, but from presence, the sense that it now holds the end of something. I pause on the corner of Brushfield Street. The light here changes with the hour, golden but diffused. It slips between chimney stacks and settles on window panes, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the cobbles. An old man sweeps the steps of a shop, moving slowly, carefully, more out of ritual than necessity. He glances up, offers a nod. "Quieter now," he says. "It is," I reply. "Feels like the street itself is breathing." And it does. The city exhales, a sigh that spreads from brick to brick, from gaslight to gutter. I sit for the first time today, on a low stone wall beneath a leafless tree. My legs ache. My fingers, numbed from wind and newsprint, tremble slightly as I rub them together. The warmth comes slowly, creeping in like the hush after a storm.
Down the road, a boy plays with a hoop, laughing as it rolls ahead of him. His boots slap against the stones, and his laughter echoes down the narrowing street. It's a brief, bright sound in a world painted mostly in gray. A stray dog pads past me, pausing only long enough to sniff the base of the lamppost before continuing on with the determined solemnity only strays possess. No leash, no master, just purpose in the wandering. The city's colors begin to shift now, muted by use, by soot, by hours. The whites of aprons have taken on the tones of flour and ash. The blacks of boots and coats have blurred together into a long, worn uniform of working London. Even the light feels used, filtered through chimney smoke and midday haze. I watch the clouds as they move overhead, slow and lazy. Ships of sky, sailors of silence. A grocer wipes down his stall. The baker leans in his doorway, arms crossed, surveying the last of the morning's crowd. The flower seller has packed up half her buckets, petals wilting in the cold. There is no rush in their movements, only rhythm, only repetition. I think of the headlines I've shouted, of the stories I've carried. How many ears heard them? How many minds turned them over like stones in a pocket? And how many were forgotten before the next breath? The pouch at my hip is heavier than when I began, but it's not the coins I feel. It's the echo of each call, each clink, each hand that took a paper, each pair of eyes that scanned a name, a place, a tragedy. A group of dock workers passes by, arms around one another's shoulders, laughing at some joke I can't hear. One glances at me, grins, and says, "You sold the world today, eh?" I shrug. I only carry it. They laugh and disappear into the smoke. My knees creak as I rise.
Less of ink, more of sweat and stone, of baked crusts and burnt sugar, of London working through its own digestion. I begin to walk again, not quickly, not slowly, just forward. The final paper under my arm rustles as the wind picks up. I place a hand on it, steady it. No reason to let it fly, not yet. A child sleeps in a pram near a shop front, wrapped in a blanket that once was blue. Her mother speaks in whispers to the grocer, pointing at potatoes, bargaining. The baby's face is peaceful, untouched by news or fog or smoke. I walk past them. I don't speak. Not every story needs a headline. A clock chimes the quarter. A pigeon flutters up from a windowsill. A cart rolls over the stones. And I, just a boy with tired feet and ink in his veins, become part of the slowing tide. The day has thinned. You can feel it in the wind, in the rhythm of the boots against the stones. Fewer now, softer, like the echo of a song already fading. The city has not stopped, but it has settled. The buzz has softened into a hum, the kind that brushes gently against your ears, but asks nothing of you. I turn off the main road, toward a quieter row of buildings near the edge of Aldgate. Here the street narrows, and the fog returns, not heavy like the morning's veil, but soft, like old lace laid gently over the rooftops. The air is colder again, or perhaps I've just stopped moving fast enough to outrun it. Scraps of newsprint litter the gutter, torn corners of stories, pages blown free from careless hands. I pause, bend, and pick one up. It's from another paper entirely, not mine. The ink smudged, the letters streaked by damp. The date is still visible,
but the story is gone, reduced to a blur of forgotten names and incomplete headlines. I let it fall again. There's a kind of poetry in it. The last paper remains tucked under my arm. I've stopped offering it. Not from fatigue, though that hums through my muscles. No, it feels right to carry one story to the end.
To let it stay unspoken, unread, a quiet thread that never unravels. A bench waits near a church gate, the stone beneath it slick with dew. I sit, not because I'm cold or tired, though I am both, but because the moment asks for stillness. The city invites it now. In the distance I hear a cartwheel creak, a soft murmur of conversation, the whistle of someone too far to see. The great clock tower in the center of the borough ticks unseen, but I feel its rhythm in my chest. The air smells of iron and old stone. Someone nearby is burning wood instead of coal. The scent is sweeter, gentler. It makes me think of country roads and things I've never known. A figure walks past, a woman wrapped in a gray shawl, her hands inside her sleeves. She glances at me, offers a nod. I nod back. No words. There are none left that need saying. The lamplighter passes, his ladder swinging gently from his shoulder. He pauses at the corner, leans up, and touches fire to glass. The lamp flares to life, soft, warm, golden. It doesn't fight the fog, it welcomes it. I watch him go, watch the way the light behind him leaves longer and longer shadows. Across the street, a single sheet of newsprint drifts like a leaf, carried on a breeze that smells faintly of river water and rust. It flutters, then falls, folding against a stone step and resting there like a blanket too small to warm anything. The last paper still rests in my arms, warm from the touch of my coat. My fingers brush its edge. I think of the fire, of the gas explosion, of the riots in places I'll never see. I think of the boys who read it aloud to friends, of the woman who wrapped glassware in the headlines of the day, of the girl who held it close like it might keep her warm. And I think of the silence between all of it, the space when no stories are written, no words are printed, but life still happens. The city fades just slightly, like a lantern behind thick curtains, still glowing, but gently now. Ready for night. A breeze rises again, and I hold the paper tighter. Not to sell, not to save, just to keep it close, like a whisper no one else has heard. The stones beneath my feet feel still, the air heavy but kind. And somewhere, far, faint, fragile, footsteps fade into silence. The lamps burn now, one by one, flickering golden orbs floating in a sea of gathering blue, each one cast by the hand of a quiet lamplighter, walking his appointed path like a ghost, pausing at corners I passed only hours ago. Where once there was chatter and call, clatter and motion, now there is stillness, rich and deep, like velvet pressed against the ears. The last of the light fades from the sky, the fog returning to claim the city again, not fierce this time, but gentle, like a blanket drawn over tired shoulders. Buildings blur at the edges, horses walk slower. Even the bells seem hesitant now, unsure whether to toll again or let silence win. I walk slowly, more adrift than a march, feet tracing steps made by thousands before me. My arms are light. The canvas sack now hangs nearly flat at my side. Its seams slack, its weight emptied, save for a few coins and the echo of the voices that filled it.
In my other arm, still folded and warm against my chest, is the last paper. I do not plan to sell it. It is mine now, not for the news, but for the memory. I pass closed shop fronts where light glows faintly from behind curtains. A tailor finishes a hem by lamplight. A woman brushes a child's hair by the hearth. Behind glass, I see quiet dinners, steaming bowls, hands resting gently on table edges. Each window a story I'll never know, but carry all the same. The scent of the evening softer, coal smoke thinned by distance, the faint remains of baked bread, the cold iron perfume of fog. The air no longer stings, it kisses. I pause beside a church gate where a stone angel watches over a patch of frost-bitten grass.
My feet ache, my legs hum with the memory of motion, but the stillness now is welcome. I sit again, lowering myself with care, letting the hush wrap around me. The final copy of the day rests in my lap. My hands trace its edges, not to unfold it, but to remember, to feel the ink beneath my fingertips, to let the day's stories pass into quiet. Above, a single window creaks open. A voice, maybe a lullaby, maybe a prayer, drifts down in a melody too soft to catch. It fades quickly, lost among chimney smoke and the exhale of bricks cooling for the night. Somewhere distant, a church bell tolls once. Not the urgent call of morning, just one note, a reminder, the day is done. A horse passes, its steps unhurried. A cart creaks behind it, half loaded with empty crates. The driver dozes upright, reins limp in hand. The beast knows the way without him. A lantern flickers nearby, then steadies. Its glow pools at my feet. My fingers rest now, no longer cold. My voice, once sharp, rising above crowds and carts and bells, is still. And the city around me breathes in time with that stillness. In the end, all headlines fade, all papers yellow, but the sound of them, the way they fluttered in my hands, the way they caught the breath of passers-by, the way a single word could quiet or ignite, that lingers. I close my eyes. The fog settles gently over the street. A cat crosses the stones in silence. A lantern sways in the breeze. And the city, grand, soot-covered, full of sorrow and song, leans into sleep. The street is still. Cobblestones rest beneath a blanket of fog, the lamps above flickering like tired stars. The city exhales one last time, and even the wind grows quiet. No more footsteps, no more headlines, only the soft settling of stories into silence. I lean back, head against the cold stone wall, fingers loose around the last folded page. It doesn't need to be opened. It has said enough. The ink has dried. The world, for now, has whispered all it must.
Somewhere, a lantern sways gently in the night breeze, casting slow, golden arcs on the damp ground. They shift like memories or dreams, bending across brick and mist. Far above, chimneys breathe their final ribbons of smoke, dissolving into the clouded sky without resistance. The city grows distant now, its edges blur, doors close, curtains fall. In shop windows, candles shrink into pools of wax. In alleyways, carts sleep, horses rest, and the echo of boots fades down roads that no longer demand urgency. A cat slips silently along a rooftop. A bell in the dock tower tolls once, soft and distant, not to mark time, but to let it go. The paper slips from my lap. The fog takes it gently, lifts it just enough to carry it across the street, where it comes to rest beneath a shuttered window. There are no headlines left, only hush, only breath, only quiet. Good night, traveler of time. May your dreams carry the rustle of printed words, the soft glow of gaslight, the hush of fog rolling over rooftops. And may the morning find you rested, where history sleeps softly beneath the dust and rhythm of old London stone.